case, in case you didn't know, that was more than a little hyperbole, but thank you very much, John. That was maybe you should give the talk. I think I'd rather listen. What I want to do today is to talk about one of the, what you could call one of the central problems, or one of the central issues in our thinking about being human, as far back as you can go in the Western intellectual tradition. Are humans born selfish and egotistical and whatnot, and society kind of civilizes them? This would be the sort of Hobbesian view. Or are humans born cooperative and helpful, and society corrupts them? This would be something in the direction of a Rousseauian view. And I do think that we have made progress on this question empirically after centuries of simply speculating about it, such that we can narrow down. I think both of those formulations have something true about them, but we can narrow it down. So I'm going to talk mainly today about human ontogeny. So I'm going to talk about children being helpful and cooperative. But let me just give you a brief evolutionary frame here to connect with what Jonathan said and with my talk yesterday. And that is the following, that most thinking about how humans became altruistic focuses on the things that John talked about, in particular reciprocity, direct and indirect reciprocity, that I will do something nice for someone because they're going to pay me back later. So in the end, the books can be balanced, and everything can survive the Darwinian analysis. But it turns out there's really not very much evidence for reciprocity in nature among other animal species. So there are your few textbook examples of vampire bats and things, but really reciprocity it has not had a good record empirically. And what I want to propose to you, it comes from my talk yesterday, is that there's another process that can apply in the human case that may not apply widely in other cases, and I don't know whether it does or not, and maybe it does to some degree in other animal species. And that is that when your life starts depending on collaboration. So let's assume that that humans are going along and they're foraging like apes in a basically individualistic manner. And something happens. So let's say one possible event is terrestrial monkeys, like baboons, all of a sudden invade their space and start taking all the stuff that they were foraging before. So the baboons get to the fruit before these early hominins get to it, and whatever. And so now they can't do their normal foraging. So they need to find a new niche. And those individuals who are capable of finding a new niche are going to be the ones that are going to be hanging around, leaving more babies later. And one possible niche is things that require multiple individuals to acquire the food. So collaborative hunting, but also various kinds of collaborative food gathering, of digging up things that it requires two people to do, gathering honey, which is a big nutrition source in many small-scale societies. It requires a couple of people to go to make the whole thing work. So what if now to make a living you have to collaborate? You're under some new pressures. And so one of them is you've got to cognitively get it together to be able to coordinate with somebody and form a joint goal, to be able to trust the other person that they're going to do their part as you do your part. And you're going to, all of a sudden now you're going to be under pressure to be a good collaborative partner, because you have to collaborate to survive. By yourself, you're not going to be able to find enough food to live. So you've got to collaborate to survive, and that means that if everyone in the group thinks you're a bad collaborative partner, either you're incompetent, or you try to take all the food at the end, or whatever, you don't play your part, you free ride all the time, they're going to smile at you, and then they're going to go take another partner and go hunting, and you're going to not have any partners. So you are under social selection. There's a social selection process for good collaborative partners. So we can imagine a scene where collaboration is selected for both in the physical environment, that we are exploiting a niche where we have to collaborate, and it's part of the social environment that you're growing up in, that you're going to be at a disadvantage again, social selection is a generalization from sexual selection. That is, your social environment is encouraging and discouraging certain behaviors in the sense that you're at a reproductive disadvantage if you're not collaborative. Now, how does altruism fit into this? Okay, I think altruism can get off the ground in this collaborative context without any problems of reciprocity whatsoever. So the problem of reciprocity has always been, I do something nice for you in the expectation you're going to do something nice back for me and everything's going to balance out. But I do something nice for you, and what do? You run off with the goods and don't reciprocate. And now I'm the sucker. Okay? And so in all your computer models of evolution, this is the problem with reciprocity. The instability of reciprocity is cheating. That you take the incoming part and you don't produce the outgoing part. But what if you're in a collaborative situation? What if John and I are going to hunt an antelope together, the two of us, and the two of us are required, and there's no way that I can get it myself? And all of a sudden, you know, he gets his foot caught in a rabbit hole or something. What am I going to do? Well, it's in my self-interest to go over and help him get his foot out of the rabbit hole, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to get the antelope, right? Because we have two levels of goals. One of them is we want to get the antelope together, but now we got to stop and get his foot out of the rabbit hole so we can go hunt together and get the antelope. Okay, so I help him get his foot out of the rabbit hole. Now, is he going to cheat and run away? He says, oh, I got a benefit. I got help. Now I'm going to... No, he's still under the same contingencies he was before, which is he wants the antelope too, and he needs me to go find the antelope. So helping is a natural occurrence when we're doing something collaborative. It's a sub-goal underneath the main goal. And if you look at descriptions of hunter-gatherers, I'm thinking especially of Kim Hill's studies of the Ache foraging in South America. He lists all these things they do to help one another when they're hunting. They help one another with their tools. They cut down brush for the other one. They tell the other one where things are. And that's because they're under the umbrella of a collaborative activity where everyone benefits. So altruism has no free rider problems. It has no problems like that if it's in the context of a collaborative activity where everyone needs to pull together. Now, humans are altruistic outside of that collaborative kind of context as well, and now we're going to have some of these same problems arising again once we get out of that context. But if we now have something in the direction that John was talking about of group selection, what if we now have a situation? Yesterday I alluded to a phase one where we collaborate in small groups and we go out and just hunt or gather together. And a phase two where groups become cohesive units themselves because we're competing with other groups. So we have to come together because those guys from on the other side of the river may be coming to try to take our food or try to whatever. And so now group life in general becomes a collaborative activity. We have to pull together to survive because we're competing with other groups. So now I help everybody in my group. If my group goes down in size, if all of a sudden there's a disease or whatever in my group and we get much smaller, guess what's going to happen? Those guys from across the river are coming and we're going to be gone. So everybody in my group is important. This is what Timothy Clutton-Brock calls group augmentation. It's in my interest to help my group mates because I need my group, because if all my group is gone, there's no way I'm going to survive on my own. I need my group. So I help people in my group because of this. If we think about group life in general as a collaborative activity, then the same analysis holds. That I help people because it's in my interest to have the group be healthy and viable and function in this group competition. Okay? So that's the evolutionary background. And what I want to talk about today is, and by the way, I don't know how many of you know this thing, but this sort of interdependence analysis has not been discussed in the literature at length. And it's certainly not discussed in general theoretical literature, probably because I don't think it applies very widely. I don't think it applies to a lot of different species. But it does to humans because they're obligate collaborative foragers. And it might to some degree in other species. There's a lot of altruism in some bird species and stuff, and it may very well be applied there in some cases that they're interdependent. There's now discussion about eusocial insects and whether kin selection explains everything or not. And it may be that they have some interdependencies in defending their nest and stuff. That's one of the things people have been talking about. So I'm not saying it's exclusively human, but among primates, it's exclusively human. And so among primates who have big brains and are clever in many ways, I think the human version of it is certainly is almost certainly unique.